Hello, how you doing today? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a new moon day. Pluto's exactly opposite the Earth in orbital sense. Got lots of fun stuff going on, and we're going to be talking about a fairy tale. And kind of in going back to the beginnings of my shows, when I first started in December of 2020, um, I was I said that the reason the garden got started was my spirits told me, you're starting the garden. I woke up one night, walked into my dining room, but there was a big brick wall. And I went, this used to not be here. And then the voices, the ones that talked to me, said, no. And I said, what's the deal? And they said, paint the wall. And I said, what do you mean paint the wall? And I looked down, and beside me, there was a bucket of paint with a big thick brush, and I brushed across the wall. And this was an old red Chicago brick wall. It was a sturdy wall. And it melted away, and behind it was this beautiful garden. It was full of not just flowers and typical garden stuff, but veggies and herbs, and there's a little overgrown spot. And I said, why, what's this? And they said, it's your garden. And I said, well, it's a lovely garden and I'm glad to have it. Certainly glad to have it, considering I didn't have to turn over dry Texas soil to get it to grow. But they said, no, 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 no. It's your garden for right now. And it's a place for you to invite people in to learn how to take the little spiritual nubs they have of themselves and the insights and the lights and the thing they've been carrying with them, and you're going to give them a place where their soil can grow, where it can grow, where the plants can flourish in the soil we provide here. And that's where Nancy Jean's Garden came from. And if you remember the olden days, I used to have an intro that played this lovely music, and it showed the garden, and then it showed the wall disappearing, and then it showed the real garden. And there was kind of a little, disclaimers and all that stuff for entertainment purposes only. But as I got along in readings, I started out with very basic stuff. I'd written out 100 ideas of things I could talk about that would help draw you in and make you want to come put your plants in my garden. And I learned a lot of things then. I was already building grids, and I already read cards, and I'd already was working with crystals, and I was bringing all of the knowledge I have from that in for you also. But it was really my whole goal in this endeavor always has been to help you learn how to you can use the skills that you have. And so when I went back and I was looking at how do I want to handle this, and especially because I've been doing a lot of intensive thinking inside my head, because quite honestly, walking around doing things for a couple of weeks there was a little bit painful. It wasn't painful, it was just awkward. Um, but what I really want to do is go back to that, because I think when I see your questions and comments in my when I put it up and open it up to what I call open mic night, where you can ask a question and I have to give you an answer. When I do open mic night, I think it really helps. And some of you may have not been here since the beginning. Some of you may have only found me a little bit ago. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to start going back through the old lessons, and I'm going to bring in all the new fun enhancements, the wonderful things I know how to do now to help us grow. And it's really to help all of us grow. And so today's story, I'm going to start with an intro to the story. And what I started with was Aladdin's lamp. And I don't know how, people are like, they kind of know the story because they've seen the Disney version. But there's a lot more to the story than you know. Among other things, at the beginning of the story, Aladdin's sent into this cave, and some of the things he says in the story, like abracadabra. Abracadabra, if you think about it, it's it really comes from us wanting to uh, learn, and what opens doors for us. Well, of course, what opens doors for most people is reading. So abracadabra was actually a nod to the alphabet, the English alphabet, that we all had to learn to be able to read, and then we learn from what we read. The other magic expression that that comes out of this is open sesame, and that was a magician's term, and it sets up the groundwork for us to understand that going to get this lamp was something very magical that Aladdin did to get in there. But then Aladdin gets in the cave, and what does he find? He finds the lamp, which represents water. He finds a wand, which represents wands or fire in Tarot. He found a cluster of crystals that shone, and he also found the crystals were ground, and that's like the pentacles, and the sword, which is air. So we have wand for fire, sword for air. Crystals are ground, the grounding elements. They're like pentacles. And the lamp, which is water. And he chooses to remove the lamp. If you can see, that's what his hand's reaching out to do in the story. He chooses to get the lamp and reaches for that. And he comes out. But the other thing he found when he was in the cave, I got a little out of order here, is he actually touched two things in the cave. The first thing he touched was a ring when he was looking at all the other things in front of him. And that ring exposed a genie to him. And that genie said, "You may have one wish. Look around carefully. What do you want?" And what Aladdin did was he grabbed the lamp because he thought it looked like something he and his mother could sell at the market. And he said, "I want to go home. I don't want to stay here in this cave." Even though the cave was a perfectly beautiful, wonderful, probably prettier place than he'd ever seen in his life. And so the first thing he touched was the ring, and that genie freed him. Then when he got home, he finds out if he rubs the lamp, he gets wishes. And why it's 3 wishes, it depends on which story you read, whether it's 3 wishes, unlimited wishes, or whatever, but he has wishes. And so from the very beginning, this story's kind of told this tale of Tarot. It's told the tale of all the sciences that try to tie together the 4 dimensions of the earth, wind, air, and fire, and those things. So, okay, then what? He takes it home. Then he finds out when he rubs the lamp, he has options, and he goes through a whole series of options. But there's some words that are buried in the telling of this tale that are important for us to know when we've grabbed our own lamp and now we're trying to figure out, what are we going to do with all these emotions? What are we going to do with this humanness we have? What are we going to do with the spiritual realm we're going into? And genius, the word genius, comes to us from Latin, and and in Latin it meant it means geniuses are inhabited by the genies, and the genies were considered enlightened or a way to grow and to expose yourself emotionally. Then we get the word, and the other word that helps him is he begins to learn how to use his imagination and not feel trapped by what other people have told him. And the word imagination comes from magi, and magi is the Persian word for seer or wizard. So when people say to me, I don't know which way to go, I don't know how to move, these are the guides to our own self-mastery. is if we use the genius inside us, that feeling we have to spirit, and then when we use it to within our imagination, we can see how we can grow. And so let's get our own little genies out of the bottle. That's the first thing we need to do. And we need to decide if having a genie in a bottle and opening it up, if it's something we're going to master or is it something that's going to dominate us. And so that gets us to a couple. I am taking questions, by the way, guys. So that's the end of the lecture. We're going to go to the questions people asked today, and there are only two of them. One of them was, every time I shine my tea kettle, I think about Aladdin's lamp. That's great, Mimi, and that's when you ought to be timing into what do I imagine I want next? What will help me the most next? And then the other question that we had today that came in off my YouTube post. Yeah. How can I find the path to walk when there's so many pieces scattered in front of me on all the paths? Well, Shifting Veil's been doing a lot of heavy duty work, trying to figure out which way is up. And all I can tell you is take time to look, like I just said, these are all scattered things that have burst out of your lamp. Take time to use your imagination and feel inside yourself what feels most comfortable for you to move forward. That's the best way to work with it, because I don't know, I was just born this way. But when new things are presented to me, I'll all of a sudden, oh, I'm really supposed to know about that. So, where do we go from here? Oh, wait. Hide. I hope that answers your question, 3 Shifting Veils. Really, take the time, take it slow. You don't have to gather up all the pieces at once. They'll be there for you again if you want to leave one behind for the moment. What do we have in comments? And this was my first comment today. Nice to see you. Thank you for programming this today. And you're in Minnesota. You guys are going to have some bad stormy weather, I hear. So just kind of enjoy the rain and realize it can kind of bring you some cool. Hope it doesn't bring too much. And then Mimi Nee's here. I read her. Love and Light, Debbie Shifting Veils. Miriam Bratton's here. Rosie B's here. Barbara Berkman's here. Good to see you. Good morning, Christy Storm. I'll see you later today. Helene Robinson's here. Mimi Nee's here. Lauren Hutzinger. Elle's here. Ooh, this is going to be fun. I hope it is. Let's see. This is really exciting. Okay. For Debbie, yes, start meditating, because when you meditate, things will come and you'll go, where did that come from? I must have imagined it. And it's not you imagined it. You meditated it in. That influence, that energy's come into you. And that will help guide you back where you need to go. And I forgot to do one thing about this. The book that I'm using, and I use this book all the time when I was in my early channel. I used to pull a card a day from it. And this is what it's called. Inner Child Cards. And it's a big deck of cards. This is the Aladdin card. That's my hand. That's how big these cards are. But every single thing in here, every single card, major arcana or minor arcana, are based on fairy tales, folk tales, tales of wisdom that we were given as children that we probably didn't really understand any more than we understood how this little Aladdin had choices here to make. And he was actually given the tools we now are finding very useful as adults. But it's the Inner Child cards from Learner and Learner. And I think it's still available. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be. But I found this in the 80s. And I used to, and every single card, okay, has a picture of the card and then the story of how they relate to it. And what I found as an adult was the stories in here were so enlightening to me for my spiritual journey. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed using them. So it's inner child cards, a fairy tale tarot. I have no idea how much it costs now. I know what it costs them, but like the 12 is Jack and the Beanstalk, the 12 in the Major Arcana. The 13 is Sleeping Beauty, which is, and Alice in Wonderland is 10. And the wheel that's on normally in a 10, it's her and all the characters from the Wonderland riding on a merry-go-round. It's just wonderful. And it just gives you a different view and a different depth and a playful view to work with our symbols that we like to work with. And let's see. I don't know. Is somebody getting buffering? You may. Today my internet on my phone was a little slow. It hasn't been slow on the computer. And maybe that's why nobody's talking to me, because everybody's being buffered. And maybe I'm being buffered and I don't know it. But Stephen the Jupiterian, thank you for showing up today. Okay. How do I get past being blocked and invisible? Although I never feel invisible with you or with others, but I know that I have that sense, but it's very disconcerting. That, Barbara, is shadow work. That's where we put up our own, we put up an image of ourselves that isn't true, and it's one we've accepted from other people, and we need to figure out, the first thing you need to do is when you, hi Linda Frazier, the first thing you need to do when you are feeling blocked or invisible is to figure out what's triggering that in you. And it can be a matter of, I'm going to pull a card from the Fairy Wisdom deck, and I pulled it early so I could be ready. And apparently it wanted to answer your question. And that's this deck. I'm going back to my fairy tale decks and my fun things. We need a few more fun things. Where'd you go? And what I got today from this deck kind of answers your questions, Barbara. It did not recognize you. It's called the Fairy of Reflection. The fairies in this are very interesting looking. And it goes, when you're looking at reflections, the key word for this is mirror. And it's time to look in the mirror. What person are you angry at and reflecting back at you? What do you need to change within yourself? Often when we have problems with someone else, in other words, you think people are blocking you, maybe in part it's because you are also blocking them. And then you go, I'd never do that. I want to reach out. Well, it's another way of cutting people out of our life so we don't really have to deal with them and tell them what's bothering us or figure out how to solve a problem around it. You are only able to see something, if you're only able to see something nice in people, then you meet someone and you feel nice and warm towards them. It's because that's a part of them that reflects back that you feel nice and warm about. And when we remember our own true identity, then there's no need to go and inflate and create another ego. You've had somebody tell you, you can't be that, Barbara, you need to be this. And kind of in the confusion, you decide to not really reflect anything. Lack of faith leads to fear and uncertainty. we begin to feel less inadequate. When a person is secure within themselves, they will notice that their lives become more and more peaceful. And the chant for you about fighting off the element of her, the reflective part of her that's negative for you, is, O mirror of divinity, what is it that you reflect to me? Could it be that I need to see? Could it be that I need to see what is truly within me? So let it be. And this requires us not thinking it's always about us all the time. I mean, maybe you're around people that aren't worth paying attention to. And so long ago, you turned them off. We need to go find people who are worth paying attention to. You need to go put yourself out there and try that. But I kind of know some of the stuff's going on around you, Barbara. And you've had a lot of people dismiss problems you've had in the recent past. And I hope they're getting worked out. And I think we saw October was going to be a great time for you. But right now is the time for you, Barbara, to go look at, when you see a show about shadow work, watch it. If it speaks to you, then seek that out. If it doesn't speak to you, don't seek it out. Or just, I mean, I turn on things all the time, and I'll start seeing, I'm not really interested in this subject, even though it's around something I'm really interested in. But today, and this is a little off subject, I guess in the last week, the Pope has signed a document. And it's not a thing like we're all going to sit and talk about it. It's going to go out to the diocese. They're going to have no, this changes now. And the first one he did is one that warmed my heart. There are 15 of them. You can go find them on YouTube. Look up the papal decrees. But one of the things he did that I think is brilliant for the church, and it can only help, is they're going to have the first real audit of the Vatican Bank and all the banks that the Catholic Church is involved in other countries. And I can tell you for a fact, I know people that have been looking at how money gets floated around Europe and not to the best resources. Somehow or another, the Vatican Bank was in there. It's been there for thousands of years. It's no wonder. Look at what some people in this country have been able to do in 100 days. So you can imagine what they were able to do in 1,000 years. But not stated among things, the Pope is allowing women to become deacons in the church. Now, if you're not a Christian and you don't understand about deacons, deacons were actually, in the earliest church, were the first group of people that were kind of considered the people running the show. And it was later that they developed priests and things like that to take over and do things. But I know way too much about this. I was married to a theologue. But deacons can, within the Catholic Church, do Mass. They can preach from the front of the church. And they can do a whole lot of things they haven't been able to do. And so this is sort of this Pope showing us the beginning of an unleashing of a great deal of the divine feminine. The other thing the Pope's going to do, which I know a little about, which I know kind of a weird thing about, the Pope's summer palace, this Pope's summer residence. They call it the summer residence, but it's really a palace. It's in Rome. And I've been watching people who have been going around using ley lines, trying to fix major breaks in the ley lines. And sometimes it's been hard because one of the ley lines that was broken was under the Vatican. So you can imagine they were not going to let these folks show up and do it. So they had to do it from distance hills. Rory Duff explained the whole way they did it, but they fixed the one that was under the Vatican. But he said there's also one under the Summer Vatican, and that was going to even be harder because in Rome they had 7 hills they could stand on and focus their energy down. And he when I saw him speak about it, they were in the process of working that out. I'm going to answer your question, Els. That's why I was excited to see what I saw today. But they were trying to break this. They were trying to get access to the ground so they could fix the ley line that's under the ground. That's how all the universal energy goes around the earth. And I presume they were successful. I presume now that the Pope has ordered them to sell a whole lot of, it's $1 billion worth of property. That's just residences that different clergy within the church has. And they're not going to take that money and put it back in the general fund. They're making a fund for the poor and the dispossessed. And they're going to use the billions they're getting from this to build homes, create clean water sources, and help people create active, live communities. Okay, and Elle's question. No, I'm not a big fan of the Catholic Church. That was why I was fascinated by this. Among other things, with a little swipe of his pen, he said, if you're divorced, just go talk to your priest and you can take communion. That's all you have to do. No more of this annulment crap, no more dragging your ex, and no more disowning your children. I mean, annulment in the Catholic Church was a rough deal, and that's going away. They also have created a group outside. It's under the umbrella of the church. They're going to help pay for it. It's outside the church to go after child predators and people who do that stuff. And that's huge, because when they start taking apart, Elle's arguments with their dogma, he's tearing the dogma. He's tearing the thousands of years of we have to say it this way or else. He's tearing that up. He's projecting a group that's going to relook at the Bible and how we speak to the people. He's going to allow the individual groupings, like, I don't know how many of you were alive for it, but with one fell swoop, after in the late 1960s, the popes used to say the mass to the wall where the crucifix was on. And that's where the term in magic hocus pocus comes from. That actually comes from a line in the Mass about changing the body into spirit, changing the water into wine into blood. That's part of the hocus pocus thing. But within one day, and I had friends who were Catholic at the time. I was not Catholic. So they went to church, and all of a sudden the priest was looking at him. It was like such a sea change. It was unbelievable. And he's doing that, but he's now allowing them. But if you go to a service in Tokyo, and you go to a service in Dallas, Texas, and you go to a Catholic service in London, England, or in France, or in any of the other countries, all the priests will be saying all the same words. They will be using the same Bible verses as part of their homily that day. That he just struck that away too. So now the priests can have the priests and the local areas. He said, why should someone in Rome tell an indigenous people in Canada that they have to worship this way? He said, all we did was export making them Europeans. And I'm going to hide that. No, actually, I'm going to correct you now. I told you I was married to a theologue. Y'all are going to learn more about this. How many of you have ever heard about Unitarian churches? And under the Unitarian Church, there's only one Christ. And when they had they had a meeting after Constantine was going to make the Christian church the official religion of Rome. They had a meeting, and the Romans said, yeah, but we don't want to give up our polytheistic God. So they divided Christ into Christ, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That came out of that meeting where the Catholic Church became the official church of Rome. So if you want the real roots of Christianity, first of all, they're in Christ. And there's a brilliant um, History Channel thing from Jesus to Christ, and it's a 10-part series about how we went from the carpenter to the God Inc. that now runs it. What this Pope's trying to do is trying to get rid of the things that have made it God Inc. He's removing one thing that pissed all the Italians off. There are a bunch of Italian families that were princes of the church. Their families were considered royalty within the church. He just got rid of it. Said, no, no more. Take away your titles, everything. And so when you say the roots of Christianity, he's trying to take it back to the roots of Christianity. That's why I'm saying, give this a shot. But the more I heard him talk about it, one of the things he said is it's emerging that the church is not European. I mean, it isn't. It came from the Middle East. That goes together with the documentary I saw yesterday about a place they found in Peru that's kind of like the place in Turkey who I can hear the name in my head, but I can't ever get my mouth to say the words. Council of Nicaea. These are the clowns that gave us the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Thank you, Miriam. I knew there'd be a good child who stayed through Sunday school classes. I actually got thrown out of Sunday school in the 7th grade because I asked questions. But there was a really good documentary about how they found this old city in Peru, and it's so much older than any other city they'd found up to that point. We're finding all these places like in Turkey where there was a civilization. We had this false timeline that got fed to us by the church that humanity rose out after the Ice Age. Now, the church didn't have a lot of faith in the Ice Age. That's the other thing, is this Pope has written a declaration to welcome in the scientists and the new knowledge. And there's an atheist scientist who's been very against the church who said, for the first time, I'm willing to look and listen to the church. It sounds like he's trying to take the blinders off. But about this old city in Peru, it's real old. And it matches up with the place in Turkey. Well, they were a globe apart. We didn't have jets to take us from one place to the other to say, copy each other. How did all this happen? Why was all this happening at the same time? They're beginning to understand there's a much stronger spiritual timeline that we're all on. Stephen's a recovered Catholic boy. Good for you. But we are ready to, and it's what's told. It's what they're saying is, you see Eris coming in and making people, Eris, the smaller planet, the smaller thing that's in astrology, she's going to wake up, define feminism, wake women up. And in the last day, I just sat there and just switched from channel to channel and got so much information. And I'm going to be using it to try and help our community grow. So you can trust me, guys. This is the stuff I've spread out in front of me every day. I have to kind of figure it all out and sift it through. Plus decide, no, it's not Machu Picchu. It has a completely different name. It's called Pacho Chico or something. If you can go, I think you can go into YouTube and put in findings of new ancient Peruvian city, and you'll find the whole documentary on it. And the documentary site that put it together is a trustworthy one. I look up my documentary sites because I have been led astray because it looked really real. And then I went home and found out that's not really real. And that happens to me too. That's what this Pope is trying to say, Els. If you can look it up, you can find there were several really pretty good documentaries about the 15 things this Pope said. And he's piss them off. Oh, this one will light everybody's fire. He wants to invite spiritual leaders from all faiths, not to come and sit and talk to the Pope and tell him what he ought to do. He wants to meet with them, listen to them. And he started with the Orthodox churches, but meeting with also non-Christian based churches. Any place that's really wants to discuss a meaningful understand of universal beliefs. That's about 14 in his 15 things he wants that he's got out there. And they're starting them. I mean, he's got people working on them now. And I hope she is. Ellie, when Ellie started reading the Bible and translating it for people, I kind of turned her off because, like I said, I was married to a theologue. I've sat through my times in sermons and Bibles. But there's a fascinating trend out there when this is happening in Rome, and he's opened up how the next pope's going to be chosen. There's a lot of fascinating things happening out there around us if we open our minds up to it. So when we go home and we say, oh, but nothing good, that's it. That's the name of it. Thank you, Rossy. I have people who are fast on their computers at home. Thank you very much. It is an ancient Peruvian city, and it follows a city that they thought was the oldest Peruvian city, and this one's layers below it. So it's an interesting time. We are going to find out a lot of stuff. They're finding out a lot of stuff around the pyramids that I wish they would get rid of the guy who runs their things. I can't remember his name, but when they had the Arab Spring, he lost his job, and there was another guy put in charge of antiquities, and a whole lot of new groups came in, and they found a lot of stuff that they've been keeping hidden. The guy who's running them, he's back in charge again now. But the guy who's running them now, he gets very angry if anybody says anything about ETs having anything to do with the pyramids. Okay, fine. Do what you want to do. Thanks, Rossy, for helping us. That's a big thank you. And okay, what else have I been up to? Well, I've been up to getting up early in the morning and checking my blood pressure, checking my blood oxygens. I'm still, for those of you who are wondering, I know I sound fine right now. At night, I have to use a supportive oxygen again. But I'm weaned way down to a pretty low amount. So they're pretty sure if I just am very careful and do everything I'm supposed to do, that I will be able to move on with my life. I haven't gotten the final body spelunking by the cardiologist, which I know is coming. They don't ever want to let you go till they're sure everything's fine. If you haven't seen it, you can look at the bottom of the description of this show. I didn't start it. My kids started a GoFundMe. We're starting to get in the hospital bills. I was in a very expensive unit to be in for 5 days, and I really want to pay them back. So if I've ever added to your day or helped you get through a crisis, I also have had several people have contacted me about getting grids. I am building grids. I am doing readings. I'm very, very capable of doing all that good stuff. Yes, that's the guy. I'm not a fan. I just think because I think I've seen him do things before the Arab Spring. I watched a documentary where he virtually left a woman in the upper galleries in one of the pyramids, and he was really, really rude, and the poor woman was scared to death, and just, yeah, not a fan. He's part of the hierarchy that's going away, and I really cannot tell you how much seeing this happen within the Catholic Church. I sent it on to a friend of mine who's been scarred for life because of the problems they used to have with their priests. And I said, I know this won't make what you've had to go through feel any lighter, But he's done a lot of shadow work on it. And for those of you who feel held back by your past, oh, that's this. You're not talking about the Pope. She's talking about the guy in Egypt. Yes, he doesn't like them. But while he was gone, okay, I'm going to copy. It's a long address. I'm trying to find a way to link it in. Like I said, it's at the bottom of the description of this show, but get your pens and pencils out, kids, because it's one of those HTTP things. Go away. Go away. Oh, come on. I'm not real fast with my phone these days. Okay. Here it is. It's I'm going to type it in the bottom here. HTTPS : and when you go there, it's my youngest child, Susan, is the one who set it up, and everything's worded from her. Wait a minute. Okay. No. By the way, my youngest got a new job, starts very soon, and that's been a long time coming. She kept getting jobs, and then Trump would sign another order and her job would get eliminated because she's in computer security. She's in charge of keeping people out of your shit. That's what she does. 67B, 6E. I told you guys this takes forever. And there it is. Ta-da. Now you know why I said it's a pain in the ass to type. I'm going to put it up on my website as soon as I get the person. I trust me, during this time of unemployment, I spoke to her often. She actually did have her own company in a way. She runs gaming things, and she ran a big gaming thing through Twitch. So if you have a little spare change, you can throw it my way. I'd really appreciate it. I have a little bit of money set aside. Okay. Yeah, Barbara, I'll send you my mailing address. I don't want to put it on the internet for obvious reasons. Not everyone likes my opinion on things. And if you've ever watched the show on Sunday with Scott, you'll know why. And I know I've got your address, Barbara, so let me write that down so I remember to do it. The only thing that I lost in this illness, and we won't know for 6 months if it's coming back, I lost all the hearing in my right side of my head, which is not pleasant, and we can't test for it yet. So, and the other thing is, if you were one of the people who bought a garden, you should have gotten the gardening thing. I'm going to start the gardening classes on a week from yesterday. So a week from yesterday start. They're going to be 4 weeks. I've sent people all the documents and paperwork and whatever that I can think they need. I'm sure we'll find out more as it goes along. It's just for people who want to learn how to work with the garden more. And then I will be of the garden. I'm ready to be rid of something. I don't know where I'm. Probably next Tuesday. I hope so. She's networking now with people in the C suites, and This is a child that broke her first computer. She broke her very first laptop computer when she was 2.5. She was playing a little kids game, and she was more than capable of doing that. She could read, and I mean read like sentences when she was 3. So at 2.5, she broke into the computer and got to machine language, and she was playing with the machine language when her dad came over and said, well, that's screwed up. Now, her father was one of the people who developed laptop computers and small computers for TI, and was part of that whole revolution. He built chips and did all that stuff. And my funny story about Mensa, my husband was British, and he was brilliant, and he was 20 years my senior, and he was a physicist, and he was all grounded in science and stuff. And he was dating the reader, right? Not a normal mix of people. Anyway, I decided I was going to join Mensa, but to join Mensa, you have to get someone to measure your IQ. So we went to a friend of ours who was a therapist, a PhD therapist, and I said, I want to take the test. And my husband said, well, if you're going to take it, I'm going to take it. So Mark, knowing us, he let us take the thing. And he both said, you are clearly way off the charts, both of you. And he said, but one of you is a half point higher than the other on the test I gave you. And he refused to tell us which one was half point higher. He said, I'm not going to set that up. Yeah. And this is true. I've had so many careers and so many things I do. And Bill was a physicist, and he kept being a physicist. But when he retired from being a physicist, he went to work with me, and we rebuilt houses. So that's another thing people with high IQs can do. And Bill and I joined Mensa, and we kind of found Mensa boring too. So we just went home. Story of Nancy and Bill. The stories always end up with, and then we went home. And then we had Susan. And that was the making of Bill's life. He lived to be 72, but the last 13 years he spent raising Susan was the best years of his life. So, have we wandered enough through my life at this point? I am writing a book about all of this stuff I'm going through, and the synchronicities are just insane, especially when I was in the hospital. They were just nuts. And Jen Miranda loves her grid. You too can have a grid you'll love. Actually, I talked to Sheila after I got out of the hospital, and I told her if I had died on the 14th, she would have had the last grid I ever built. And she said, but it doesn't say it on the back. How could I prove it? And no one would have known but you. So, oh, Shaw Woman doesn't know what a grid is. Oh, girl. Go to my website, and I've got it on a banner. Do I? Yes. Oh no. If you go to www.crystaldirections.com, that's my website. There's a whole portfolio of all the grids. Not all the grids I've built. I think there's only about 190 there, and I've built over 300. But there's a whole thing. You can see them. They come in all shapes, all sizes, all forms. They're all built from crystals. It comes with a reading and meditation, and we use the Activation Oracle Sacred Geometry cards. We pull one, and we create your grid from that card. So, oh, yeah. Okay, she's seen those. She has seen those. Okay. No, Cecil's giving my heart a rest. Actually, I'm laying down at night, and I am sleeping in exactly the same position all night long. which tells me my body's really working on healing. And and the way I sleep at night is I have black screen mysteries from Sherlock Holmes, and there's a whole bazillion of them. Okay, I'm going to let Jen write my commercials for me. And I was in the hospital and I had it on my phone, and they were in there at 2:30 in the morning, as they do in hospitals, waking you up, actually, I kind of sleep through that because I had 2.5 months of that when I was pregnant with Susan. I was in the hospital and they came in all times of the morning, noon and night. But I was lying there and they said, okay, we're done. And this one tech goes, damn, I wanted to hear what the ending of the mystery was. So they were enjoying my mysteries too. I like Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is so formulaic. I like Agatha Christie too. And I've read all of Agatha Christie. I've read all of Sherlock Holmes. I used to have I had a volume of Agatha Christie beside my bed when I couldn't sleep when I was growing up. And I also had next to my bed, oddly enough, The History of Myths and Legends for the World. It was about this thick. It was a paperback book. And it had every mythic character, all of them, all from Asian, European, Oceania. I mean, all of it. And I'd read that from cover to cover before I ever left college. Like I was almost getting ready to be part of the spiritual world, you know? Thank you, Jen. And thank you to everyone who's been here today. And remember, you have your own lamp. You can take care. It's your lamp. You light it up. Then you decide what you want to do with it. And you know, we're all in this together. And I'm going to be talking more and more about how to grow your own spirit. And I hope you'll find that line of shows interesting, because that's where we're going, kids. And I'm going to say bye. Bye.